All right, this is the one story. This is a memoir. This is titled Always Running by Luis J. Rodriguez. The great thing about this story, it's kind of short and it talks about several things, but what's really great about this is that Rodriguez then rewrote this story into a poem and he called it Race. So that's going to be the next poem that we look at. But I don't want to sell this one short, so let's look at this real fast. Let's kind of run through it, and then that way we know exactly what we'll be looking for. All right, so this is Always Running. One day, my mother asked Ronald and me to go to the grocery store. We decided to go across the railroad tracks in the Southgate. In those days, Southgate was an Anglo neighborhood filled with families of workers from the auto plant and other nearby industry. Like Linwood or Huntington Park, it was forbidden territory for the people of Watts. Why do you think it's forbidden? I think it's interesting that he mentions a few things. It's an Anglo neighborhood, families of workers from the auto plant and nearby industry. So I think it's racial, but I think it's also social, like a upper class, middle class, lower class kind of thing, right? So people from Watts are probably different ethnicities than Anglo. They're probably lower on the social class. And that's why it's forbidden to go there. Okay. My brother insisted we go. I don't know what possessed him, but then I never did. It was useless to argue. He'd force me anyway. So the brother is really a foil. He's different, right? He's different from, well, the brother's name is Ronald, but he's different from the protagonist. He's the foil, all right? He was 9 then, I was 6. So without ceremony, we started over the tracks, climbing over discarded market carts and tore up sofas across Alameda Street and into Southgate, all white, all American. All right, so they have to cross this stuff, right? They started over the tracks and climbing over discarded market carts. These are barriers, right? These are things that are supposed to hold you back. I think it's interesting that they're tracks. So we always hear that expression, oh, he's from the wrong side of the tracks, right? That's basically saying from the poor side of town, right? And I think it's interesting that we have discarded market carts and tore up sofas, because those are like, it's great imagery there. You can see those things there, and they're a barrier. They're there to keep people out. You could look even further into it and see if those have specific symbolic attributes, but I'm just going to say that they're a barrier, okay? We entered the first corner grocery store we found. Everything was cool at first. We bought some bread, milk, soup cans, and candy. We each walked out with a bag filled with food. We barely got a few feet, though, when 5 teenagers on bikes approached. We tried not to pay any attention and proceeded to our side of the tracks. We just talked about that. But the youths pulled up in front of us. While 2 of them stood nearby on the bikes, 3 of them jumped off theirs and walked over to us. Now we have this rising action. Something is going to happen. The inciting incident started when they went to go to the store, but now the rising action has happened. There's going to be a confrontation. Something is going to happen, right? What do we got here? One of the boys said. Spicks to order, maybe with some bread. So now, because they're referred to as Spicks, now we know it's racial, right? He pushed me to the ground. The groceries splattered onto the asphalt. I felt melted gum and chips of broken beer bottle on my lips and cheek. Imagery. We can feel that, right? Then somebody picked me up and held me while the other 2 seized my brother, tossed his groceries out, and pounded on him. They punched him in the face, in the stomach, then in the face again, cutting his lip, causing him to vomit. Why do you think we have to see this, right? Why do we have to me, we have to see this because he wants to show the brutality of it, right? And he wants to show how helpless the brother is. He watches his brother get beat. He watches those guys beat him up. I remember the shrill, maddening laughter of one of the kids on a bike that's laughing like a raven's will, a harsh wind shriek, a laugh and I would hear on the countless beatings thereafter. Beautiful line. Laughing like a raven's wail. Remember, ravens are often, that's a simile. Simile, I think it's how you spell it. But it's a raven's wail, right? Ravens are synonymous with death. Does that mean he's going to die? No, but it's definitely something bad that is happening, right? So it's, this laughing is like a raven's wail, a harsh wind shriek, a laugh that I would hear in the countless beatings thereafter. There would be more beatings. And this is that thing that he would always hear. We've talked about this in class, how some things that happen to us, how they change us to who we become, stuff like that. So that simile is beautiful, laughing like a raven's wail, okay? I watched the others take turns on my brother, this terror of a brother, and he doubled over, and blood flew on his shirt, and tears down his face. I wanted to do something, but they held me, and I just looked on, as every strike against Ronald opened me up inside. That's a good line too, right? Every line opens him up inside. He means like he feels the pain, right? He feels the beating, and it's tearing him up inside. If something's tearing you up inside, it's making you feel really bad. There's nothing he can do. This is a story about helplessness, right? And what's even crazier is that, like, this is his brother, who is always the stronger one, is always the one who can do the things that he can't do, right? And it's his brother that is getting beat up. So it's kind of knocking him down as well. They finally let my brother go and slid to the ground, like a rotten banana squeezed out of its peeling. Great line. They threw us back onto the other side of the tracks. In the sunset, I could see the watchtower shimmering of 70,000 pieces of broken bottles, seashells, ceramic, and metal and spiraling points puncturing the heavens, which reflected back the rays of the falling sun. My brother and I then picked ourselves up, saw the teenagers take off, still laughing, still talking about those stupid greasers who dared cross over the south gate. Up until then, my brother had never shown any emotion to me other than disdain. Disdain is like if you're tired of someone, right? He had never asked me anything unless it was a demand, an expectation, an obligation to be a throwaway boy doll. But for this once, he looked at me, tears welled in his eyes, blood streamed from several cuts, lips and cheeks swollen. Swear. You've got to swear you'll never tell anybody that how I cried, he said. And this happens because he has a rep to protect. It's all he has, his reputation, right? And if people find out that he cried after getting beat up, what else could he have, right? I suppose I did promise. It was his one last thing he had to hold on to, his rep as someone who could take a belt whipping, who could take a beating in the neighborhood and still go back and risk more. It was this pathetic plea from the pavement, I remember. I must have promised. All right. So I mentioned that Rodriguez then switched it up, and he goes directly into a poem. And the thing that's interesting about this is it's the same story, but he writes it in a poem, and he calls it Race, right? So now we know what the matter is. It's really about race, okay? My brother and I, shopping for La Jefita, that means the boss, decided to go get the good